I once had a boss who called me into his office to yell at me because I hadn't liked his Facebook status yet. He had posted it about 20 minutes prior. I told him I was actually working and not on social media during business hours. He told me that supporting the brand was part of my job description and that I needed to set up notifications for his personal posts so I wouldn't miss them in the future. My boss called me at 6 a.m. on a Saturday, screaming. He demanded to know why I wasn't at the office. I explained that I don't work weekends and the office is closed. He said he had an epiphany about a project and needed me to come in to type it while he dictated. When I refused, he told me I lacked vision and docked my pay for the missed emergency meeting that never officially existed. I worked at a small marketing firm where the owner was convinced she was a psychic. She fired a really talented graphic designer because she had a dream that he was going to steal a stapler. Not money, not clients, a stapler. She made a huge scene, crying about betrayal. The designer was so confused, he just packed his bag and left. 2 weeks later, she found the stapler behind her own filing cabinet. I requested time off 6 months in advance for my own wedding. It was approved in writing. 3 days before the wedding, my manager pulled me aside and said, "We're going to need you to come in on Saturday. It's all hands on deck." I reminded him it was my wedding day. He looked at me with a straight face and asked if I could push the ceremony to the evening so I could work a half day. My boss tried to ban us from using the restroom outside of our designated lunch break. He literally put a padlock on the bathroom door and kept the key around his neck. If you had an emergency, you had to go to his desk and publicly ask for the key. After a week of this, someone called the Labour Board and the Fire Marshal. The padlock was gone the next day, but he sulked for a month. I had a boss who would eat people's lunches from the communal fridge. Everyone knew it was him. One day, a co-worker got fed up and made a decoy sandwich loaded with ghost peppers. The boss ate it, turned bright red, ran out of a meeting, and then tried to write the co-worker up for attempting to poison senior management. HR had to intervene to explain that stealing lunch isn't protected behaviour. During a massive snowstorm, the governor declared a state of emergency and banned non-essential travel. My boss emailed the team saying, "I don't care what the news says. If you aren't at your desk by 9 a.m., consider it your resignation." I drove on ice, risking my life, only to get there and find the office locked because he decided to stay home where it was safe. I quit via email right from the parking lot. I worked for a guy who refused to learn how to use email. He would handwrite responses on printed pieces of paper, then make me scan them and email them back to clients as attachments. One day, he lost a big contract because the client couldn't read his handwriting. He blamed me, saying I should have transcribed his brilliance better. He actually expected me to forge his handwriting but make it legible. My manager told me I wasn't allowed to wear glasses at work because it didn't fit the aesthetic of the front desk. I have terrible vision. I told her I couldn't see the computer screen without them. She suggested I get contacts. When I said I couldn't afford them or surgery, she told me to just squint elegantly. I spent the next week bumping into furniture until she finally let it go. I was in the hospital recovering from emergency appendicitis surgery. My boss called my cell phone while I was still groggy from anesthesia. He didn't ask how I was. He immediately asked where I saved the Q3 spreadsheet. When I told him I couldn't remember right now because I was on morphine, he sighed loudly and said, "You really need to work on your dedication to this company." I had a boss who instituted a swear jar, but it wasn't for charity, it was for his personal coffee fund. Also, the list of swear words included things like union, overtime, and raise. If you mentioned wanting a raise, you had to put $1 in the jar. He thought he was a comedic genius. He stopped laughing when the entire department resigned on the same day. Our CEO decided to boost morale by replacing our annual bonuses with a subscription to a Jelly of the Month club. He held a big meeting to announce it, expecting applause. When the room went dead silent, he got angry and went on a rant about how ungrateful millennials are. I did the math. The Jelly subscription cost about $60. My bonus was usually $2,000. That was the day I updated my resume. My boss scolded me for stealing company time because I stopped to tie my shoe in the hallway. He calculated that it took me 12 seconds, and if I did that every day, it would add up to minutes per year. He actually wrote this down on a formal warning slip. The irony is that he spent about 20 minutes lecturing me about those 12 seconds, wasting way more company time than I ever did. I worked at a restaurant where the owner took all the credit card tips. He claimed that because he owned the credit card machine, the money belonged to him. He drove a brand new Porsche while the waitstaff was struggling to pay rent. When we showed him the labour laws that explicitly forbid this, he fired the person who brought in the pamphlet for creating a hostile work environment. My supervisor called me into her office and told me that my aura was too dark and it was affecting the plants in the lobby. She was serious. She put me on a spiritual probation and told me I had to smile constantly, even when I was alone at my desk, or she would have to let me go. I caught her watering the plants with hot coffee later that week, which explains why they were dying. I had a boss who believed that sleep was a crutch for the weak. He would send emails at 3 a.m. and expect a reply by 3:15 a.m. If you didn't reply, he would text you. If you didn't answer the text, he would call. When I told him I turned my phone off at night to sleep, he bought me an old-school pager and told me, "Now you have no excuse." I threw the pager in the trash. The owner of the company brought his untrained, aggressive dog to the office every day. The dog would growl at clients and once peed on the server rack, causing a massive outage. When we complained, he told us that the dog was the chief morale officer and outranked us. He actually made us refer to the dog as Sir. It was the most humiliating job I ever had. I requested a raise after taking on the responsibilities of 3 people who had been fired. My boss told me, "Money isn't everything. Think of the experience you're gaining." He then proceeded to show me photos of his recent 2-week vacation to the Maldives. He told me that if I worked hard enough, maybe one day he could afford to go again next year. He didn't see the problem. My boss got mad at me because I didn't say "God bless you" when he sneezed. I didn't even hear him sneeze because I had headphones on. He stormed over, ripped my headphones off, and lectured me on common courtesy for 10 minutes. He then made a new rule that headphones were banned so we could always be present for his bodily functions. I worked for a guy who monitored our keystrokes. If we stopped typing for more than 2 minutes, his computer would alert him. One day, I was reading a lengthy contract document on the screen. You know, part of my job. He rushed out of his office shouting, "Why aren't you working?" He couldn't comprehend that reading is a part of working. He wanted me to just mash keys randomly. My manager told me I couldn't attend my grandfather's funeral because it was blackout week for vacation requests. I told her it wasn't a vacation. It was a bereavement leave. She rolled her eyes and said, "Well, can't you just visit his grave on the weekend? He's not going anywhere." I walked out right then and there and never went back. Some things are more important than a retail job. I had a boss who forced us to attend her daughter's violin recital during work hours. We had to clock out, drive to the school, watch a bunch of terrible 3rd grade music, and then drive back and clock back in. We weren't paid for the time, and we still had to finish our work before leaving. She treated us like her personal fan club filler because she didn't have any friends to invite. During a heat wave, the AC broke in our office. It was 95 degrees inside. My boss had a portable AC unit in his office and closed the door. He told the rest of us that sweating removes toxins and refused to let us work from home. One employee actually fainted from heat exhaustion. The boss stepped over her to go get water from the cooler and told her to stop being dramatic. My boss asked me to babysit his kids on the weekend for free. He framed it as a team-building exercise to get to know his family better. When I said I had plans, he got passive-aggressive and started assigning me all the worst shifts. He literally told another manager if he doesn't want to be part of the family, he can scrub the grease traps. I worked as a graphic designer, and my boss insisted on sitting behind me and pointing at the screen, saying, "Make it pop," for hours. One day, he took the mouse from my hand and started clicking randomly, deleting hours of work. He turned to me, smiled and said, "See, collaboration is easy." I had to stay until midnight to redo everything he destroyed. I had a manager who was jealous of my car. I bought a used BMW that I got a great deal on. It looked nice, but wasn't expensive. He drove a beat-up van. He told me that it was unprofessional for a subordinate to drive a nicer car than the manager and asked me to park it around the block so clients wouldn't get confused about who is in charge. My boss tried to write me up for theft of company property because I charged my phone in the outlet under my desk. He claimed I was stealing electricity. He actually brought in a calculator and tried to determine how many cents of power I had used, demanding I pay him back in cash immediately. I handed him a quarter and told him to keep the change. I caught the flu and called in sick. My boss told me I had to bring a doctor's note. I went to the doctor, got the note, and paid the copay. When I came back, he said, "I don't trust these doctors, they'll sign anything." He then called the doctor's office and tried to interrogate the receptionist about my symptoms, which is highly illegal. The doctor threatened to sue him. My boss decided to redecorate the office according to feng shui. He moved my desk so that I was facing a blank wall with my back to the door. I told him it made me uncomfortable not seeing people enter. He said, "Your comfort blocks the flow of chai." He also replaced our ergonomic chairs with exercise balls, which resulted in 3 people falling off and getting injured in the first week. I gave my 2 weeks' notice because I found a better job. My boss refused to accept it. He literally tore up the letter and threw it in the trash, saying, "I do not authorize you to quit." He acted like he owned me. On my last day, he scheduled me for a shift the following week. When I didn't show up, he called my new employer to tell them I was unreliable. I worked in a clothing store where we had to wear the brand's clothes. My boss forced me to buy a $200 jacket from the new collection because my outfit was last season. I was making minimum wage. I told her I couldn't afford it. She deducted it from my paycheck without asking. I had to eat instant noodles for 2 weeks because of that jacket. My boss told the entire office that he was monitoring our bathroom usage to identify inefficiencies. He made a spreadsheet tracking how many times each person went and for how long. In our weekly meeting, he projected the spreadsheet on the big screen and shamed the top offender, who was a pregnant woman. The awkward silence in that room was suffocating. I had a boss who would invite us out for mandatory fun drinks after work on Fridays. If you didn't go, you were considered not a team player. At the bar, he would order expensive drinks for everyone, and then, when the bill came, he would realize he forgot his wallet and make us split the bill. He did this 3 weeks in a row before we stopped inviting him. My manager got angry that I was using big words in my emails. She pulled me aside and said, "You need to dumb it down. Using words like utilize and facilitate makes you look arrogant." She wanted me to write like I was texting a teenager. She actually edited one of my client proposals and added emojis. The client dropped us immediately.